Anup, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Yeah, thank you.
Anup, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Okay. So, hello and welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar. It's the inaugural event of a group art show called Urmila Enchanted Mother. And this is a virtual art show. It's an online art show and sponsored very kindly by India International Center, New Delhi. And this is in collaboration with the Urmila Foundation, a non-profit organization. 10 artists are there from all over the globe, and they are through in different genre and media they have expressed. The theme of the show is mother and related emotions, sentiments, experiences, nurturing, sustenance, love, compassion, all that goes with the thought of mother and mother nature also. So the theme of this inaugural webinar is simply the act of creation or creativity of whatever it may mean to all of us. So we have people from a diverse background. We have a very interesting panel today, and I'd like to introduce the panelists to you. We have Professor Kishalay Bhattacharjee. He is Professor and Vice Dean of OP Jindal Global University from the Jindal School of Journalism and Communication. He's a former journalist with NDTV. He's authored many books. He's made movies. His forthcoming book is on identity and citizenship, which is to be printed by Orient Black Swan. He's a recipient of several awards, including the Ramnath Goenka Excellence in Journalism Award in 2006-7 and nomination for the Best Current Affairs Program by Association of International Broadcasting 2013. Santi, Lucy, and Thoibi, his documentary on HIV and hepatitis co-infection, was selected for the international festivals in Goa and Barcelona. He is the founder curator of Art East. It's a very interesting festival of arts. Art and Livelihood, which is held annually for the past 3 years, I think, at the India International Center. It's a wonderful festival, it includes not just visual art, but also poetry, performance, singing, music. So it's a very interesting feast for all of us. Our second panelist is Sanji Bhargav. He's an icon in himself. He's the founder, director, and producer of SEHER festivals. All of us know about it. I think in Delhi, at least, all of us know. He has initiated many special public diplomacy programs between India and other countries through cultural ventures and thematic projects relating to visual and performing arts across the world for promotion of softer diplomacy and people to people contact. What better way for contact among people than through art and culture? He has spearheaded brand and image building through culture. He has also co-produced and promoted many offbeat cutting-edge cinema movies. Our third panel is Deepika Jindal, who is not here, but I'd still like to tell about her. She's abroad, and because flights have been cancelled, she couldn't come and join. Deepika is creative director and managing director of JSL Lifestyle Limited. She's founded Arttdinox. It's an art gallery, and here she promotes young artists and to particularly express through the medium of stainless steel, because that's her business also. So I think that's a very interesting venture. She's also an educator, and she's also takes up social causes. And I'm the moderator and I'm the curator of the show, which is online, by the way, right now at IIC's website. And there's another link. Please do view the show. I'd like to give you a teaser of the show, by just a few slides of each of the works that is there on the show. So I'll just put on my PPT, so your screen will go off. So there are 10 artists, as I said, who are participating in the show. There's Niels Udo, he's from Germany. He's expressed through landscape art. Himmat Shah is from India. He's a very, very famous sculptor. He has a studio right now in Jaipur. Rameshwar Baruta is a painter, and he works in other media also. He's from India, of course. And Hildegard Westerkam, she's a German who settled in Canada. She works in a very interesting medium called Soundscape. I'll just describe it more. Kavas Kapadia is an architect, and he's from India. Chang Hoon Woo is from South Korea. He's a painter. And Ramakrishna Vidala is from India. He's South Indian, and he is a painter. Prabir Purkayastha is a very interesting photographer. Now Yuki Shiga is a young Japanese, and he works in a very interesting medium called kirie, or paper cutting. And of course, my work is also there. Niels Udo is a German. He believes in the harmony of man with nature. He does site-specific installations which celebrate nature. In his own words, he says, drawing with flowers, painting with clouds, writing with water. So he works very much so in the deep wound of forests as well as in urban spaces. And he conjures up a wishful habitat, unblemished by humans. Whatever he does, wherever he does, let's say in the deep forest, he will not disturb the natural landscape. He'll just move out after he's finished his work. He'll photograph it extensively because that's how he'll bring it out to the rest of the world. To show you some more of his works. So he's actually done the planting of these trees, waited for them to grow, and then he's used natural materials. He tries to use materials which are in the vicinity, like you have gravel and stone, bamboo, reeds, flowers, found material of whatever kind. He is fascinated with the theme of the nest. If you notice, even in the last one, this is a seed, and here the seed is surrounded by the birch plants, and so it's formed like a nest. This is a very interesting, well, all his works are very fantastic. It's lava. This is actual lava, and the crack he's emphasized with flower petals. So the dichotomy of the hardness of the stone and the softness of the leaves. There again, you have floating flowers. So these are all from on-site, that driftwood that you see and the flowers that you have, and the reflections of the surrounding vegetation is very important. It's very much part of his installation. And he has worked in far-flung places, you know, like, yeah, this one. This is done on a very small island off the coast of France. And he goes to these far-flung places, unknown places, and he does his works, and it's fantastic that he brings it out to us. So I come to Himmat Shah. He's a sculptor, and most sculptors, they like to work in bronze and more fanciful materials. For him, his ultimate material is clay, the humble clay. And if you talk to him, he's 87 years old, and he is still so fired up about his creativity. He says, Karo ya maro, which means do or die. And he still wants to go on and on painting and drawing and sculpting. He reminds me of the Japanese ukiyo-e artist Katsushika Hokusai, who, when he was about 80 years old, he was called the old man mad with painting, and he used to beg that I want 20 more years of life so I can go on and on painting. This, if you look, it's all terracotta. I think all the works I'm showing are terracotta of his, and this is only 9 inches in height. And within that little 9 inches, how much it encompasses. Yeah? It's actually a desert village a village in his Gujarat, I think. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it's in Gujarat. He doesn't like to title his works because he says that way the audience gets kind of sidetracked with his titles. And just imagine how within this 9 inches he's encompassed the life of a village. He's very famous for his heads. This is ceramic and lacquered ceramic, so that's why you see the shine. Rameshwar Baruta is a painter who lives in Delhi. He does very large canvases. Now, of course, we are very lucky to have this virtual show, but one of the limitations of being online is that you can't really get the feeling of the space. This is a huge canvas. It's 100 inches in height and 200 inches in width. It must have taken him, I don't know, several months, maybe a year to make it, because he works in this very unusual technique that first he paints his entire canvas with a dark color, and then he uses a blade to scratch out the forms. So that you see here, you can't make out also because it's a small image. And I find it interesting that the jarring of the blade, how dichotomous it is with the softness, the gentleness of the organic forms that are actually emerging. And if you look at his paintings are pervaded with the silence. You know, they're large and spatial, and they're leading us somewhere. That staircase at the back, this huge form, organic form. Recently, he started working in resin and glass, and he's not very happy about this online display of this work in particular, because the layers of the glass, the light, the play of the light that happens with it, that is missing in this kind of a display. But nonetheless, I still find it very beautiful, so I wanted very much to include it. Coming to Hildegard Westerkam, she's a German who settled in Canada for many years. She was a professor in college in Vancouver. She works in extremely interesting, innovative new medium. It's not really new, but maybe not many of us know about it, and that is soundscape. So what is soundscape? It's just simply relating to the sounds around us. Because we have so much of the visual, we don't pay enough heed to the sound, just the beauty of the sounds. And that is what she brings to us. So two of her works are here, Mother Voice Talk and The Sound of Laughter. Please do check them out. Kavas Kapadia is a retired dean from the School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi. And I had requested him to give his works related to architectural forms, but he's done these very refreshing, very gentle watercolors and just mundane, everyday subjects, which we may not really pay heed to. And he's brought out the essence, the essential character of the people, very simple people. We just bypass them, and he's highlighted them, and he's brought out but through his spontaneity, he's brought out their characters. Chang-Hoon Woo is a painter from South Korea. His canvases are actually very large. If you look at the size that's written there, it's very large, and it's very intricate, very complicated method, many layers. And he emphasizes the high-tech contemporary living that we have, and metallic, technology-driven world that we live in. These are the points which he emphasizes. This one called Neural Chaos may highlight what I want to say. He likes the motif of the eye. He tends to use that a lot. And it may seem, he's given live performances in various art festivals around the world. And it may seem that it's because you see the live performance, you think that it's just done, and he does very quickly. So you may imagine that it's, you know, it's a kind of a very quick work, but he does in many layers. Ramakrishna Vidala is from Visakhapatnam, and he does actually large canvases where he has humans and nature and trees and vegetation. But he did this very beautiful cameo of his mother. and in watercolor. So I think the softness, gentleness of a character is really brought out well. Probir is a photographer who wanders all over the world. He spent a lot of time in Ladakh. He's brought out a beautiful book on his images of Ladakh. I think he spent almost a decade in Ladakh. And if you look at his works, we think it's some kind of a wonderland, some fantasy land, and yet actually they're very much images from our very own earth. So he's bringing to us how we can appreciate Mother Earth. Now Yuki Shiga, a young Japanese artist from Kyoto, Japan. He works in this interesting technique called Kirie. I'll just go to the next slide to explain his this thing. The lower half, that work of his, he's displayed it on a hand, so you can see that they are cutouts. And the beauty of the cutout comes out best if you have the light shining behind it. So perhaps in these kind of visuals, we can't totally make out the wonder of his work. This method reminds me of our very own domestic method called Sanji, which is done in the Vrindavan and Mathura area. And those are also paper cuts. I go back to the first one. He's given it a very beautiful name, The World of Birds with Peace. So you have the planet Earth, the map of the world, and you have this beautiful bird which signifies the peace and love symbol. And of course, I come to myself. This show, as I said, was inspired by the passing away of my mother a year ago, and which was a very traumatic, very sad experience for me. And I've kind of aged a decade just by this experience. But it has also brought out to me the importance of realizing the transience of life. Everything is ephemeral and it'll pass, and we have to just learn to live in the moment and to appreciate what we have. And hence the beauty of Mother Earth, of creation, of how important it is to preserve that, love, compassion, all that. So it's taught me all that, and I hope to pass on that through my works. So I end this presentation with my own work. It's called The Hymn of Creation. It's the actual Sanskrit hymn from the Rig Veda, and I've made it in the spiral form because a spiral is never ending. It's not enclosed. It keeps the hope open, which we all need today as we are in the stranglehold of COVID-19 and we are wondering where can we go. So thank you so much. I'd like to now request Professor Kishalay Bhattacharjee to talk about his experiences in relation to creativity. Thank you. Kishalay, your voice is not coming. Please unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anu. Hi, Sanjeev. Thanks for this evening, and also thanks for bringing so many artists together. I don't think in our recent memory we've been exposed to an experience like the last 10 months where people have actually gone back and found refuge in art. I think the importance of art, which has always been important, but for the common person, for people who maybe did not enjoy art as much, I mean, even for those people, art, in whatever way, became a source of refuge. And it's imperative that we keep supporting in whatever way we can, those of us who can support. I was, the act of creation, the name, the title that you gave. Actually, there's a very famous book called The Act of Creation by Arthur Koestler, who is, of course, more famous because of his book called Darkness at Noon. And he was a journalist as well. By training, I'm a journalist. Well, I mean, that's a bit of an oxymoron because journalists are not trained. And that's a problem that we are facing in today's crisis. But actually, it was far much later than Koestler's act of creation when Agamben, the Italian philosopher, and I love Agamben because I can understand Agamben more than I can understand others. Giorgio Agamben actually has a a very famous lecture and a book on the act of creation, where he quotes Deleuze, which Deleuze says that act of creation is an act of resistance. And I think this pretty much sums up my journey with the word creation, or with the idea or the concept of creation, or the art as we understand in this program, that it has been an act of resistance. And an act of resistance doesn't necessarily mean going out to the road and shouting slogans. It is that's resistance as well, but what Deleuze means by act of resistance is something else, and it's much more encompassing, actually. And interestingly, when Anu, you asked me to join the program, and I found myself in Calcutta, where I don't live. My parents live here, and I had to rush here because of exigencies, because of ill health of my father, and I found myself in a room full of books and old objects from my childhood. Even the bed, where I used to sleep as a boy. I live in Delhi, and not Delhi. I mean, I live in Sonipat, actually, in a university where I work, the OP Jindal Global University. But when I came out here, the first few days, I wasn't sure that I will be able to stay here long, because I like my own space. And then I started documenting the little objects and things in the house with which I grew up. And I did not grow up in Calcutta, actually. I grew up in a beautiful hill town called Shillong, where my father was visiting professor there. And then they, of course, came back here many years ago, and they brought everything from there. And when I'm saying everything, they literally brought, except for the house and for the land, I think they got everything from there. Even the doorknobs or the lamp shades, the letterbox, letters, tree trunk, which I had collected from the garden and decorated in the corner of the room. And my mother saved that and brought that as well. And I think what I understand by acts of creation is that the act of creation is basically embedded in memory. And when I'm saying memory, it's not just the memory of our out here in the faculty in the brain, the memory of our body cells. Our body cells have memory, and I think the act of creation is very inextricably linked to the body memory. It's also embedded in the idea of freedom, in the idea of courage, resistance, growing up. Every little thing that one has collected, seen, experienced, confronted as one went along. And I sometimes feel that as a crushing mediocrity, if I wasn't given the kind of background that I received, I probably wouldn't have been able to appreciate the arts. I mean, I grew up with books, with paintings, with cinema, with critique. When I'm saying critique, it's a very important part of creation, because we were expected, in the larger family, we were expected to sit at dinner time and critique a film probably that was being shown in the town or the city where I lived, or a book that was recently published, because those days not many books used to be published, so it used to be one book and everyone would read it for a long time. Or an article that got really good press or bad press. I mean, even as young minds, we were expected to participate in the adult discussion and critique a book and movies, and often we got it wrong. But I think it was the ability to be able to come out and speak helped in the act of creation, because I think act of creation is also the act of courage. Like I said, it's not just the act of resistance, and the resistance is. And for which reason maybe that I went to journalism, and when I teach in a school of journalism, and the first thing that we tell our students is that you must question the status quo. I mean, what do journalists do? Journalists basically make sense of what's happening around the world, and they question the status quo. And how do you question the status quo? How do you know what's happening around the world? Because of a sense of curiosity. I think these are the toolkit for becoming a journalist. And I think this is the toolkit for becoming an artist, for scientist, for everything. I think curiosity is so important. Without that level of curiosity, and the more you hone that level of curiosity, I think that's where you kind of raise the level of art. I did start by painting in Bombay. I was there in 89, 90, 91. It was very difficult to eke out a life as an artist, or that's what I felt. And I could barely pay my room rent, and it was before liberalization. Life wasn't easy. Salaries were so meager. I think I realized that I wouldn't be able to sell art and carry on in life. So I gave up, and I joined television, and television was new that time. Television really opened up, and we are not talking about the television today. Really, I'm embarrassed by what the kind of television that we watch today. But and I joined one of the best at that point of time organization at NDTV. We had tremendous freedom. There was resource. We could travel, and we could shoot. And I started enjoying the process of creating a visual material. I would love to edit things myself, shoot things myself, and later, when the internet came, much later, of course, this whole journey from the typewriter to the computer and to the internet, this multipolar and the multidimensional and what we call the multimedia today, I think being involved and immersed in this multimedia, and with the kind of upbringing that I had filmmakers and artists at home, poets and writers at home. So it was just a given that you will write. I mean, you can't say I don't know how to write. I mean, you will be writing. And even at the age of 9, I started editing the family magazine, and I think that wasn't very unusual in that India. It may be unusual today, but today again, it's become commonplace, because on a digital platform, you have many kids doing these kind of things. They have their own blogs. I mean, that's pretty much the idea of the handwritten family magazine that we used to do. So it's just taken a different shape. But I think this multimedia experience gave me the kind of depth and courage to be able to attempt at the festival that I do, that you mentioned, the Art East Festival, where I bring in various artists from various platforms to be able to put together, because I wasn't a good artist, so I thought I'll curate art. I mean, that's the next best thing that you do when you can't paint yourself and you love the act of creation. So in Art East, it's of course is a festival that talks about migration and displacement, art and livelihood. And I argue that when people migrate, and people are migrating in such extraordinary numbers all around the world, and often people migrate under duress. They do carry their songs and dance, but they often leave the art behind, because art is created with the material that is found locally out there, whether the earth, the stone, the metal, the technique. And a lot of art gets lost, and I make a desperate attempt at trying to document that. I can't claim I can help revive that, but I can at least document that. So that's the art festival that I do. And besides that, of course, my act of creation is of course writing books, which I do because, like I said, that's something that was expected even when I was a child. And having being worked in what is called conflict zone, the word conflict has become very sexy these days. But when we went, it was not conflict. These were disturbed areas. These were areas where not many journalists would go and live. And I had taken a firm decision that I wouldn't become a paratrooping journalist, as we were called, if we went to those areas. So I started living in those areas. There are 3 theaters of conflict in India. Jammu and Kashmir, the India's northeast, and so what is called the Maoist corridor. But these are loose terms. I had to live in one area and of these places. And my books are mostly related to things around conflict, but it is not, though it's about analyzing conflict, but it actually involves more to do more storytelling. And I think I'll end out there with these words. I started by saying that the act of creation is an act of resistance, quoting Deleuze. But I think, as I discovered, and as most artists do discover, the act of creation is also an act of storytelling, because storytelling is the most intrinsic thing about human nature. I mean, the only thing that connects human beings is a story. Stories connect us. And the first thing that you would have heard is a story in your mother's lap or someone's lap as a baby. They told you stories. So through those acts of creation, the root word of act of creation, root word of creation actually comes from architecture and from divine creation, which starts from scratch. But I think it's that imagination that the realm of imagination that in which we move around from where we start. So I love curating art. I write my books, and I ask my students to develop a passion for thought, because unless you think, you cannot create. Unless you think, you cannot imagine. I mean, you're thinking. And most people, if you ask them what is their passion, they would say their passion is painting, playing cricket, playing the piano. But this is the trick question that I ask in class. And I never get this answer. Of course, obvious, I won't get it. I tell them that, I want you to think. Every day, sit and think. Think for 15 minutes. Think for half an hour, because that's what's going to give you those ideas to be able to create. And I shall stop here. Anu, thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a very passionate, very empowered delivery. Thank you so much. And I like that take on the act of creation is also an act of resistance. And I also agree with you. Of course, I find it all very interesting what you said. I agree that the curiosity factor is extremely important. And one point I want to share, that the memorabilia that you're talking about, that was from Shillong, from your home in Shillong, is very valuable. It's that beautiful radio behind you. It's like a work of art in itself. So
I know. In fact, I didn't mention about the radio. I was writing something down. I'm basically making a little diary entry of all the objects in the house, because who knows whether I will remember or not, who knows how long our memory lasts. And I was writing this last evening, I was writing about it, that how this particular radio behind me was our literal window to the world, because newspapers would come after 2 days, after 1 day, and Dad would match the time of his watch with the news on the radio. So the radio completely controlled our lives, and everything that we knew about the world came through the radio. It was the discussion, the music, the news, a small little rectangular box. And I always imagined that there were actually real people who sat behind, in the radio when the valves would light up, and often go and peep from behind and see who those people were. And I'm sure that was every child's, preoccupation with those days with the radio. Yeah. So how important these things are which helped us imagine.
Yeah. And now, like, we are cocooned within our homes. So because of COVID, so the internet is our radio today. Thank you. Sanjeev, please, would you like to share your experiences?
Yeah, good evening, friends. Anu, thanks for calling me over here to talk. And hi, Kishalay. Can you hear me properly, both of you and all of you?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sound is fine.
I'll tell you a little bit, a little story about my own life and how act of creation or the process of creation came. My father expired when I was 18 in St. Stephen's College, and
Oh,
he was into films distribution and financing the commercial cinema. And suddenly I was, and since my elder brother was in Oxford studying in his first year, I was thrown into this big, dark, and very macabre sort of a world of commercial cinema distribution and financing. And I had to retrieve myself out of this whole situation. And there were almost seven unreleased films, big starters, multi-starters, which were there. But I was into theater. I was at that time in first year college. I was doing Hindi theater as an amateur theater, uh, person, and with Faisal Al Qazi and Arun Kreja, we were doing theater. So it was really an uncharted flight for me. I mean, I was a path which was, I did not choose a path that came suddenly on me. And so, but since I was doing theater, I started, I changed the course of my film distribution company to, instead of commercial cinema, to art house cinema at that time. And my first meeting, obviously at that time, was with Shekhar Kapoor, and Shekhar became a friend, and we started becoming getting into the art house world. And I met Govind Nihalani, and then we well, I did the world right controls. It's called world right controlling of world rights of Akrosh. Some of you must have seen, some of you must have remembered. It had
अच्छा.
Nasiruddin Shah and Smita Patil. So really, it got me into cinema, and then we did Ardha Satya, and then we made Masoom, Jaane Bhi Do Yaaron, and so the rest is, of course, it's not the films that I'm talking about. I'm just saying that we used to sit down like at the Mandi House coffee shop or the tea shop and Sri Ram Center. And while we were doing theater, we would come across people, like-minded people, uh, making a scene or conceptualizing a scene or a how a play needs to be done, or Girish Karnad's Tughlaq, and how it's going to be interpreted. For example, by Arun Kukreja. And we went into the real process of everything. And that was fascinating for me, not just 1 hour of seeing a play or seeing a film for 2 hours. It was how it was done, how the director got the idea, how the story was adapted to screenplay, how it was then made into a film, what angles, what camera, why this angle, why the scene, and that curiosity, as Kishalay said, it came to me because I wanted to question myself that it's not just important to see a painting on the wall. It's not just important for people to, it's unfortunate that most of us uh, just go to a concert and hear a rag Bageshwari. But what happened behind the scene? How Bageshwari, because Bageshwari has a set pattern, it has set notes, notations, it has set, Swarmala. But what will this particular artist do, which would be very different when that artist from that gharana would do? Now, to me, that was the important part. And so music, art, cinema, luckily, as I say, I'm very thankful to God that through an early setback in life, rather than taking a course and just remaining in a sort of a path that I went on to a path where I said, okay, fine, God has put me into that situation, but let me actually make the most of it. And the rest is, of course, it's a long story, and I don't want to uh, bore you with all that. But when we founded SEHER in 2000, I just questioned again the whole process of every concert looked the same to me. And this, I have nothing against anybody, or I'm not talking uh, critically analyzing, but every concert had two plants, two gamlas, one dari, one stage, and two tanpura walas, and one tabla, and one harmonium, and one vocalist, or whatever. I mean, how do you entice people? Of course, I mean, there are people, because there are those many people who are interested in music. But as I keep saying to people, till we democratize the performing arts and visual arts and take it out to the moorings of the proscenium stage, uh, we are not going to multiply. And believe you me, till we multiply, at least as cultural, not just elite, but as cultural masses, as cultural people who are coming from ordinary homes like us. I mean, we are not some gharanas, or we are not some big families who are coming with very privileged people who are coming and staying with them, and learning how to talking. But the fact is that it's important. It should be accessible. And to me, as I was telling somebody today, that when I found Seher, I only wanted to do outdoor programs, outdoor concerts, outdoor, just throw it open to people. It's a challenge for the artists as well as the audience. It's not going to be easy, neither for the artists, not for the audience, but it's still worth it, because the monument adds to the performance, and the performance adds to the monument. Otherwise, the monuments are also getting, as sorry to say, but dilapidated, as thank God ASI is doing a good job of it now. But we added so much to the monument that suddenly CNN or NHK or uh, Australian Television Broadcasting Corporation was coming and uh, watching and covering, and Japanese television was actually covering the dance performances in India at a Purana Kila monument or a Nehru Park Bhakti Utsav. So I'm just, the other thing that is very important, which to me is an act of creation, comes from within. It comes from the heart, and it should come straight from the heart. It can't be contrived. It can't be learned. It can't be taught by one to the other. I mean, behind you see this painting by the master. And once I talked to Hussain Saab, and I said, Hussain Saab, my daughter it seems that she does very good drawing. I mean, वो 2 साल की थी बेचारी वो, and I felt as a proud father I had to endorse it कि वो बहुत अच्छा drawing करती है. लेकिन I said, how do I promote? I mean, how do I encourage her? Who can I ask? Give me a good teacher who can teach my daughter. You know what Hussain Saab told me? He said, this is the worst thing that you will do for your daughter becoming. You don't have to make a painter, but just throw a lot of colors around her, papers, contis, crayons. Just throw things around her which are creative, and good things will happen automatically. Don't don't you tailor make things for Amira, your daughter. Now, so that really put something, and this was in 1998. I remember very well. Uh, uh, Perhaps before that, but I thought, to whatever we do, we'll sensitize children and sensitize the youth, because it is very important for the creation that people are sensitized and their hearts are touched. So, to me, these are important factors. And of course, another incident and story that I can tell you is that when we were doing President Obama's cultural dinners, both the dinners, the cultural program has been done by my organization. And it was very important, as you say, it's a process of creating. And the first, to me, the most important thing is form a team around you who will help you create something better. If you get a mediocre team, then mediocrity will dance around you. But if you get good people who think like you, who create things also in their own art forms, their own field, related field, uh, straight from the heart, and who think and who do things, it is better to create a team like that. So I went to the then principal secretary to the president and I said, what is the aim of the US president coming to India? Of course, it's not just, there's a charter. So MEA has a plan and a thing, and they work on a plan. So it's not as though they're just coming to have a dinner, official banquet at Rashtrapati Bhavan or seeing a Rashtrapati Bhavan or parade is something different. But Mr. Obama's plan was to promote world peace because he was talking about many things, and it was so we said, how can we not base a dance on world peace, but how can we use Vishwa Shanti and Shanti Mantra in our dance program that we'll do for 20 minutes. And we created the Shanti Mantra. We created a music composition based on Shanti Mantra. And we did a dance which was based on that composition. And 20 minutes, and literally we had given them the translation of the Shanti Mantra to President Obama and the entire 180 people who were present at that official banquet at Rashtrapati Bhavan. And believe you me, I saw the President Obama roll it, and he took it and he put it in his pocket, and he enjoyed the dance, rather quite a lot. And after that, I got a call from the Indian ambassador in Washington that the White House needs a video of that dance performance. To me, unless there is an impact, there is no point of doing things. I mean, so I'm just saying, correlating the entire thing on how the process of creation came from the objective and the aim of President Obama's visit, how we just put through my team. I mean, I didn't do it. I remember Bindu Juneja, the great Odissi dancer in Bhopal. I didn't want to take any known faces because then they come with a set pattern. They come with a set baggage, and nothing against the well-known people. But I wanted to take a dancer and musicians and singers. Everybody should be handpicked and should be relatively lesser known, but highly talented. And that's how the entire beautiful program that came, and it became an iconic program. So to me, children, and I'm coming back to the importance of sensitization at a very early age needs to be done for people to start thinking. And as Kishalay said, I mean, there must be, it's a creativity. And I think aesthetics you can develop it, you can chisel it through institutions and through, but it's something which is inborn. It is with you, and it comes in the way you are being brought up at home, in school. And I remember in modern school when we were growing up, our principal, late M.N. Kapoor, used to say, you don't need to actually stand first in your school. By all means, obviously do well. But he said, I want you to be an overall good, good student. First division, well earned. One hobby, well enjoyed. And one sport, well played. And you become a sort of a, in quotes, a complete human being. And then I heard Kumar Gandharvji saying the same thing, that if you want to become a good musician, it's important for you to read good poetry, to understand good uh, art, to see good classical dance, and to understand it. And then you can actually, then you perhaps can dream of becoming a good vocalist. I mean, टू मी कितनी बड़ी बात कह दी उन्होंने कि एक कंप्लीट आर्टिस्ट बनने के लिए आपको पोइट्री भी सुननी पड़ेगी और किताब भी लिटरेचर भी पढ़नी पड़ेगा और आपको डांस भी देखना चाहिए. वी आर नॉट लिविंग इन ग्लास हाउसेस which is unfortunately happening today for lack of either time or lack of intent or just unaware. People are unaware that actually it is important for you to develop an overall sensitivity to create. So with that, I don't want to go on and on about my stories, but that's something I thought is uh, the whole process of creation is the most important thing, but it is inbuilt and it comes from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanji. That was wonderful. Admin, do we have a little more time? Can we take a little more time, Manisha? Sanjeev, I wanted to ask you a question about, you were talking about that International Music Festival. Could you quickly share about that?
Yeah, we started a world music festival in 2016, and it's called the Udaipur World Music Festival, because I'm very fond of going abroad, and I'm very fond of going abroad and attending festivals, because um, it's important to see how other people are doing good things. Otherwise, you start just thinking, मैं तो बहुत अच्छा कर रहा हूँ. There are 50,000 people who come in 3 days, and these days you come and get the numbers also through various organizations on social media. Police tells you, and you feel happy. But if I want to do a good jazz festival, it's important for me to actually go to Vancouver Jazz Festival and see it and compare myself to Vancouver rather than doing something on my own and live like a king in my own territory. So, Udaipur World Music Festival was started after I got inspired in 2005 I went and saw a festival I was in New York, and we were watching in the big, I think it was Bryant Park, and I saw London Gospel Community Choir. So I really thought of 10 community choir people, and I wanted to bring them to India. And then I think some of you might remember So Bakosa, and that song of 1975.
Yes.
And I said, why can't we get these people to India and do something with that kind of music? And of course, again, in that, I listen a lot, Anu. I listen to even my daughters. I mean, I listen to young children. I listen to music. I listen to uh, my own driver. I want to see what kind of music he's. But to cut the long story short, my daughter told me, I never get to hear Brazilian samba over here, or Brazilian or African drums. So I said, here it is for you. And I sat down late at night. I wrote a concept paper, and it was a paper of world music festival, something that India did not have till then. Um, Lots of festivals are happening, but I like doing thematic festivals. So, and we did Udaipur World Music Festival. It has over 52 different, or rather 15 countries. We pick sort of an aim for ourselves, an objective, and it is to actually surpass 15 countries, music from 15 countries, and it is music at different times of the day. So there's morning music, which is meditative. It's a meditative stage. In afternoon, there's another setting, different lake of Udaipur. It's afternoon, which is romantic stage. And evening, it's in a cricket stadium in Udaipur. It is headbanging stage. So it's energy. So throughout, there are from morning 8 o'clock till 11 o'clock at night. There's music in the air, and then there are meet the artists. There are one-to-one between people who want to meet the artists. There are dinners. You can meet the artists over cocktails. You can meet the artists over over a tete-a-tete and talk. And so it's congregation of world music, and Indian musicians have gained, touchwood, a lot. I mean, because Rajasthan has formed a lot of our sarangi, for example, was taken by a Moroccan artist who came to me, who came to perform, and she loved sarangi. So, and she had not heard of sarangi before. So, imagine our Rajasthan sarangi is now traveling the world with the great Moroccan artists. So this is the advantage of, to me, the creation that one gains from the other. It's Adan Pradan. So similarly, so Udaipur World Music Festival has become pretty big, and we are now rated as the first three big festivals of the world music scene. And Songlines, the famous music magazine, has written good things about us, and there are tourists who come specially to India for that. So it promotes tourism, it promotes well, as I say, Adan Pradan between countries, and the musicians tend to gain. And then we take these musicians also to the schools of music in Rajasthan. So we just don't call artists and send them back. I mean, we let them interact with some of our kids and children, not just be on the stage.
Sanjeev, when I was listening to how you want to promote the youth and how you have made emphasize that point so many times, it's also another thing which you emphasize is that unknown talent to promote. It reminded me of the lines of the poet Thomas Gray. Full many a gem is I'm forgetting. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness on the desert air. And so that flower needs, people. We need many more Sanjeevs to bring out that unknown talent, to give it a platform.
No, we have to multiply. We need many more Kishalays. We need many more Anju Jindals. We don't need just only Sanjeev. But yeah, Kishalay.
Kishalay has a point, yeah.
I just wanted to say that, just to reiterate that how every little experience of your life adds to the acts of creation. So, if Sanjeev hadn't, from his Stephens, decided to go into this art house filmmaking, I mean, I can very firmly say that Akrosh, Tamas, Jaane Bhi Do Yaro has been very important in my life to be able to, if there is anything called act of create, if I'm creating anything, those films were part of it. Or he mentions Hussain Saab. Hussain Saab's, he used to live in Cuff Parade in Bombay, and his son was studying with us, called Oez, and Oez used to have this red Fiat, the Premier 118, and Hussain Saab one day painted his trademark thing on the bonnet of the car. Now, we used to love going for drives on those cars for various reasons. But my experience of the Cuff Parade house was access to the films, because Hussain Saab had a fantastic collection of world films. And those days we knew about we heard about Tarkovsky, about Bergman, etc. But access to watching them was very difficult unless there was a film festival. And I watched all my world films so if If I did not have access to his house, I wouldn't have been exposed to those films. So you don't know what kind of experiences you gather, but all those experiences really come together to the final act of creation.
So it's been a really fascinating session, and we could go on and on. Both our speakers have got so much knowledge, so much to share. But I think I'm the culprit. I overran my time, and I'm so sorry to the audience that we don't have time for question and answer. Like I said, I overran my time. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Kishalay. Thank you, Sanjeev. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anu. Thanks. Thanks, Kishalay. Bye.
Welcome to the launch of the